The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. We're having an interesting morning here. So I'm so excited to be here. You ever have one of those mornings where the universe just keeps going, oh, I think I'm going to slow you down. Not completely no, but I think I'm going to slow you down. It's just been from the minute I went to drive out of my driveway today and right then a truck pulled up behind my driveway. It's just been an interesting morning, but we're thrilled to be here. I'm Shannon Penrod. I identify as a proud pony, parent of neurodiverse individual. Those are the words that my son has given me to use. You know, if you watch the show here, that we are very committed to using words to describe people that they give us and tell us. So depending on what words you like to use to describe yourself, those are the words that we want to use to describe you. So I know people will write to me and tell me that neurodiverse is the wrong word, but it's the word, and for a very specific reason, I won't go into it now, maybe later. For a very specific reason, it's the word that my son uses. So I'm honoring what he has given me to use. If you watch the show, you know that it's part of our mission here to provide information and inspiration to that larger autism community that starts with individuals who are themselves, whatever words they use, on the spectrum, autistic, have autism, neurodivergent, neurodiverse, whatever words they use, that's what we honor. They are the beating heart of our community, but we also include in that community everyone who loves those individuals. So that's really important to me because I count myself in that area of the community. And that's what we're here for. I got to tell you, we got a great show today because our guest is Jenny Palmiotto, who is going to be with us in just about 10 minutes or so. And she is amazing. She's the founder of Love and Autism. And she's going to be talking about their newest conference that's getting ready to happen that you guys are going to really love, especially if we have any Swifties in the house. If you're a Swiftie, you're going to love this conversation. But even if you're not a Swiftie, you're going to love the conversation. We're going to get to that in just a minute, but we're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Our fabulous Chris Desmond is going to show you on the screen some of the ways that you can connect with us. I want to say a shout out to Chris because it is his birthday tomorrow. We won't be doing a live show tomorrow. So if you are deeply appreciative of Chris and all that he does, I know I am. Oh my goodness. I don't know where I would be not here if it weren't for Chris Desmond. So give him a shout out and tell him happy birthday because he's working hard and doing amazing things. By the way, we are on a bunch of different sites live, and we know that many of you enjoy watching us live. And if you are watching live, we love it when you write to us. The chat is open right now. You can be writing in now, talking to me, or writing in later and talking to Jenny, whatever flips your switch. But we know that the lion's share of you listen to us in podcast, and that's a lovely thing. It is a free download wherever you get your podcast. But I do want to say that when it comes to you for free, there are ads. And I'm unapologetic about that. That makes it free for you, which I'm sure if you're like me, I really, really appreciate that. However, I know some of you have written in and said, I'm doing something very exacting and it's jarring when I have to go back and forth from the ads. I really want the content. I'd be happy to pay a little bit for the download if that would help and I could have it without ads. Of course, you can do that by going to glow.fm/autism-live. When you go there, it's $5 a month, and that gives you not only Autism Live, but everything we do at the Autism Network. That includes Ask Dr. Doreen and all the other shows that we do. When we do a new show, it shows up in your inbox. You choose to listen to it when you want to listen to it, but it's ad-free. $5 a month. You can't really beat that. Although you can if you pay for it if you pay a year in advance, it's that much cheaper. And believe me, we're going to be around at least another year, several more years. In fact, we are planning on. We're getting ready to move the studio in just, I don't know how long. It was supposed to be a couple weeks. I'm not sure. But I'll tell you about the auction that we're having next week that you're going to want to check out because we're selling a lot of stuff that we've had laying around for a while. I've got, you can't see, but all around me, I've got cameras and cords and camera bags and lights and stuff, you know? So if you need something, there might be something, furniture, right? Not this, not, I'm keeping these chairs because these are fabulous chairs. Anyway, there's stuff. So all of that's coming. But as you know, if you watch the show, one of the things when we have a guest, we like to start out with a jargon term. And when it can be something that's appropriate to, you know, the arena of what we're going to be talking about, we try. For those of you who might be new to the show, when we do jargon of the day, we've been doing this for 14 years. And in the beginning, what we would do is we'd give you an actual definition that would be full of more jargon, and we would make fun of it. And then we would move on to a working definition that was less perfect, but maybe would help you to get a grip on a beginning idea of what this thing meant. So much of the definitions have gotten better. They're less jargony. So now we've added AI in, and we're giving you a comparative, 2 different definitions so that you can see that what's left out of some definitions and what's in other definitions. Sometimes we get a little fatoots, so sometimes we're joyous. And it's very elucidating. So today's term is ableism, something we're going to be talking about with Jenny in just a few minutes. So let's foray in, and this one, our first definition comes to us from Oxford Reference. Ableism is defined as discrimination against people who are not able-bodied, or an assumption that it is necessary to cater only for able-bodied people. Wow, I don't know about you, but that definition makes me break out into hives, right? First of all, there's the whole thing about defining somebody as being able-bodied. Like, who's in charge of that? I'm just going to guess not somebody who should be in charge of that, right? But this idea that this assumption that everything should just be set up for people who aren't maybe facing any kind of a physical or any other kind of challenge, yeah, that's ableism. Okay, let's move on to our second definition and see if our blood pressure goes up or down. Ableism, policies, behaviors, rules, etc. that result in unfair or harmful treatment of disabled people and in continued unfair advantage to people who are not disabled. Harmful or unfair things that people say, do, or think based on the belief that disabled people are not as good as people who are not disabled, or that they do not deserve special arrangements that help them to live their lives and be included in society. Well, I don't know. I think my blood pressure just went up. That came to us from dictionary.cambridge.org. Here's my thing about these 2 definitions, is that it's very easy to look at these and go, well, that's not me. I would never do that, right? Because I don't think that there's anybody watching this show who thinks that they are better than anyone. I don't. I think if you're here, you probably already know lots of people who are different from you and know that the difference is sometimes the most beautiful thing in the world, right? So it's very easy to get on a high horse and say, I have never participated in ableism. And I think that's dangerous. And I want to say, I find myself getting a little emotional. I grew up with a mom who was differently abled. And she did not like the term disabled. And so I still have a little bit of a, whenever I hear the word disabled, because I think that's wrong too. And I don't like able-bodied. I never knew someone who was as able and able-bodied as my mother. My mother was born with both of her feet backwards, clubfoot, both of them. Both of her legs had to be broken as a child. She was like Forrest Gump. She walked in braces. But my mother played girls basketball in braces. When I was 4, my mother, who was studying to be, she was already a nurse, but she was studying to be an LPN. We were in the backyard, in a kiddie pool. I was 4 years old. My sister would have been 6 and my brother would have been 2. And my mother heard screams coming from down the street. There was a very big thoroughfare. It was just 2-lane, but busy thoroughfare separating us from another part of the neighborhood where there were a bunch of houses, and probably 4 houses down, there were screams that were coming. And here my mom had 3 little kids, and she, in a kiddie pool, right? But she said to my sister and I, everybody get out of the pool. Don't get in the pool. Stand here. Don't do anything or go anywhere. I'm going to go see what's happening. She was on crutches. And she, my mother could book on crutches. And she went and, held up a crutch, stopped traffic herself, went across, leapt, it was like a 3-foot hedge with a little bit of a fence in front of it, like pole vaulted over it on her crutches, got to the house, and they were screaming because a 2-year-old had gone into the pool during a party and had drowned. And my mother resuscitated her and saved that little girl's life while a bunch of people who were supposedly able-bodied stood and didn't know what to do. My mother was the most able-bodied person in the room. So I kind of hate this disabled thing. I know other people don't have a problem with it, but that's where I come from. And still, you would think, because I grew up with someone where it was a consideration. This was before there were ramps in front of buildings, folks. This was before there were all kinds of accommodations. There were places that we could not go as a family because my mother could not get in if she was in a wheelchair or on her crutches. And that would snake my mother out, man. She would be like, she would find a way that the following year that we could get into that building. I'm thinking about museums and things that we would go to. She'd be like, okay, because there were times when she was in a wheelchair, but there were times that she was on crutches and times when she could walk on her own depending on where she was, because she had multiple surgeries. But it was never okay with my mom. She wasn't going to stand for things being in her way or in our way because they were in her way. And I do notice some things because I was raised this way. But does that prevent me from sometimes inadvertently, without thinking about it, being ableist? It doesn't. And I think we all have to be mindful and willing to be wrong sometimes. I think the only way we get through ableism is by being open-minded. Now, it's wonderful that we're having our guests come and talk specifically about this topic, about ableism and what it is, because one of her partners that she is doing this event with is the fabulous Alex Plank. And I have to say that Alex Plank is such a dear friend of mine, because Alex has no fear to tell me sometimes he teases me because he knows I'm like, what? And I think that's fun for him. But there have been times in our friendship where I have said things and Alex has pointed it out to me and said, that's a really ableist point of view, Shannon. And I've gone, it is? But then it asked me to further investigate and go, okay, I need to change some of my stinking thinking. Because there are times when we are so used to doing something our way that we can think it is the only way. And that is ableist. It just is. And if we aren't willing to recognize that all of us are susceptible to that kind of thinking, I don't think we get far. So I just want to put it out there and say, don't be afraid to be accused of being ableist. Don't be afraid to recognize ableist thoughts. And if somebody says to you, I think there's a higher path than the way you're thinking, I know it's a little embarrassing, right? But if we don't let go of that and do better, we can't be better. And we need to be better, especially those of us in this community. We need to be better to help raise up ourselves and everybody that we love. Yeah. So I can't wait to hear what Jenny has to say about this. Let me tell you a little bit about Jenny. Jenny has some letters after her name, which a lot of letters actually. I know the LMFT, but she has PSYD. I want to know what that specifically means. She is a thought leader in the neurodiversity movement and the visionary founder of Love and Autism, an organization dedicated to dismantling systemic ableism and championing the belief that autistic rights are human rights. Boy, do we appreciate that so much. As the owner and clinical director of the Family Guidance and Therapy Center, she has pioneered neurodiversity affirming therapy practices that empower autistic individuals and their families by fostering strengths, relationships, and positive autistic identity. Her advocacy challenges the narrative that autistic individuals do not desire or require love, authenticity, and belonging. Who could possibly think that they don't want that? Instead, promoting an autistic affirming society where autistic traits are valued. Jenny has organized transformative events, including Love and Autism's An Evening with Ezra, storytelling and screening, the West Coast movie premiere of the award-winning film Ezra, which serves as the blueprint for neurodiversity event design. She is hosting the upcoming Love and Autism's Eras Tour, where over 200 autistic guests and allies are gathering to celebrate autistic authenticity and belonging in a way the world rarely makes space for. Through her work, she creates spaces where autistic voices are valued, shifting perspective and inviting people into a world where belonging is a given, not an exception. She continues to write, speak, and create meaningful opportunities for change, ensuring that neurodivergent people and their families feel seen, heard, and deeply understood. How amazing is that? I wanted to read that all to you because it's all true and all fabulous. So let's welcome back to the show after a long hiatus, Jenny. Is she there? She is. Jenny. Oh, we got you now.
Did I do it right?
There, yep, you're there. Hi, Jenny.
Okay. Yeah. Hi. Thank you for having me.
I'm so thrilled that you're here and excited to hear more about this newest conference. Is that what you're calling it, a conference? Or
it's an event, actually.
It's an event. Okay.
There will be learning. There'll be emotional learning, but we're doing a movie screening of the Eras Tour.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So maybe we need to talk about that first. You are a self-identified Swiftie. You're calling this the Eras Tour. I guess we need to give the disclaimer that this in no way is Taylor Swift is not endorsing it or involved. I know you have a disclaimer on the website about this, but Jenny, like we know that Taylor loves to reach out to her, the people who love her. I mean, is there a little part of you that's hoping that she shows up or that she in some way does something?
I mean, that would be like a dream come true, but not the intention of the event per se. The intention of the event is to create this unwavering, joyful experience for autistic people and their families, and through the lens of Taylor Swift's Eras Tour, because as a Swiftie, I really know what she has done through leadership is that she's created this this space that is so welcoming that you can arrive upon any Eras Tour in any country and feel welcomed, feel included, feel like you belong, and have this collective energy of feeling okay. And everybody there is really being their authentic self. And so when I was coming off one of my Eras tours, I was like, you know what? This is what the autistic community needs, this sense of belonging. Like we need this collective joy and this ability to show up and just know that you belong. And I feel like that part of being unwelcome or having some sort of barrier to being included is something that a lot of autistic people and their families face in almost every setting, educationally, medically, socially, in all spaces.
Well, I love that something that she did created a feeling that inspired you to then spread more of that. That's a beautiful thing. And we're just giving a shout out to Taylor if she happens to see this, that you wouldn't mind her coming, but it's not.
We wouldn't mind. We would not mind.
But she is not coming. We're not misrepresenting, but should she come? I love, you say here, it's unfiltered joy.
Mm-hmm.
That's a wonderful thing. I absolutely love that. Can you talk a little bit about Your daughter had a middle school project. I want you to tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, my daughter's in 8th grade, and they have a requirement for graduation where they are do service in any way. It's pretty broad, and we were watching the conversation around it, and it was almost like people were like, "Oh, just get it done," or "Oh, you could do this, and it will be really easy." And my daughter was like, "I don't really want to do easy. I want to do meaning." And we happened to be getting prepared to go to another Eras tour, and I said we should do an Eras tour. And the idea just like it lit up between us, and then we grabbed one of her Swiftie friends, Taven, and we decided we're going to create this beautiful event. And we were right, because when we released the first email blast, we had 100 people enroll in a day or register in a day. Wow. And we hit capacity. We actually had to call the place, the Thursday Club, and ask them, well, what exactly is the capacity? Can we extend that? And what if we don't have, it's standing room only. So we did actually get to extend it and expand our capacity. And so now we have over 200 guests coming together to celebrate autistic love and joy and Taylor Swift.
There we go. For those of us who are less, and I said to you before, I said I'm a little bit illiterate when it comes to Taylor Swift. I understand who she is. I appreciate her and have love for her, but I'm not very literate. I have not seen the Eras tour, except maybe a snippet here and there on Reels on Facebook. So I don't necessarily understand all of that. But you have dovetailed this all into some thoughtful design for the event. What does that mean for those of us who don't know?
Yeah, well, the thoughtful accommodations or accessibility is actually related to, creating space where neurodivergent people feel welcomed, accepted, included from the start to the finish. So it even goes into how we're setting up, explaining the event or sharing about the event, what it is emotionally about. And one of the things that when I was able to go to Taylor Swift's events, what I noticed immediately is this sense of welcome. And it was contrasting to what I notice in that autistic people experience, that they like even in events that are supposed to quote unquote accommodate or are even for autistic people, sometimes say like, go regulate over there. Like you're welcome here, but if you need something, a sensory experience, etc., go over there, leave the event. And so in when I'm thinking about event design, I'm really thinking about as an entry point, even when we're considering, would this be a reasonable event for me? Would I feel comfortable and interested? And does this excite me and do something for me? It starts there, and then it travels throughout the full event where all of us have different regulatory experiences and different emotional needs and different social needs, relational needs in any given space that we go to. And so this event kind of affirms that. And so we have, places for quiet relaxation that are just more light conversation. We've got spaces that are for dancing, singing, joyful movement. We have a space that is for full unwind. So if somebody is feeling a sense of anxiety or just really needs more silence, more reflective space, we have that space designed. We have outdoor space for panoramic ocean views in this beautiful setting. Okay. And so we've wanted to cultivate this experience that like you get to move through any event and have the experience that you'd like, that is intended for you at that moment, at any given moment. And so, even we have a game room set up with all these Taylor Swift inspired games, Uno, trivia, definitely the bracelet making. You talked about Swiftie, not knowing Swiftie culture, and I'm reaching, but we are going to be doing bracelet trading. These are all the friendship bracelets. We have tons and tons of these bracelets. And this is one of the things that is so beautiful about Taylor Swift and her fans, is that they come with these bracelets to give each other. And it's an invitation to just immediately connect. And I've never seen anything like this, where I go to lots of concerts and lots of events, and I notice that we all have common ground. We enjoy this type of music, but we're not connected. And so what Taylor Swift has done with the friendship bracelets and her fans, is that it has become this immediate opening. Mm-hmm. And I love that. I love that aspect in life, that you can come by yourself. I think that non-autistic people value showing up with a group or showing up with somebody, and might not go to an event alone. What I've noticed about our registration is what I really wanted to capture is that you absolutely can come to this event by yourself and have this experience. So we have a number of registrants that are coming alone, with their parents, with friends, with any amount of people. But the invitation is that you get to show up as yourself, and you are immediately welcomed into the space. And the friendship bracelets allows for this immediate connection with other people that you don't know, and you simply don't know, and that the intention is not to develop a lifelong friendship, but really just to have these authentic connections.
It's amazing. The organization is called Love and Autism, and when you first started, correct me if I'm wrong, your first big thing was the all autistic wedding.
Well, we had done a few conferences before that, okay, but that was our first event where we said, let's have an experience. Yeah. Let's not just talk about these themes. Let's embody these themes. And I'm a therapist, so that's called. I'm an experiential therapist, meaning change happens in the room. Yeah. And it's not like you talk about it and then you go out and change, but change happens within the therapeutic space. And so I brought that experiential aspect into our event space and said, let's embody it. If we're talking about love, if we're talking about relationships, what is something that embodies this? And it was this wedding, and
which was amazing.
It was wild. That was fun. I don't think I knew the word autistic joy at that time. And boy, did we create it though.
And it's got to be 10 years later, and everybody's still talking about it. It really was a watershed moment. But I'm wondering, there's so much confusion around, and I've seen this with other organizations when they talk about love, that then everybody thinks that you're just talking about romantic love and you're just talking about sexual relationships. And I know you're not. Do you ever get frustrated having to explain to people that it's love with a capital L that includes all of it?
Well, to be honest, I feel like when I positioned love and autism together, it was provocative. Okay. And that's sad, right? It shouldn't be provocative. Those two words paired together should not be provocative. And the ampersand has a very real meaning to me. And I knew it was very powerful when I chose it. Because there's a lot of ands. It's not disability alone. There, when we think about autism, there's a cultural aspect of being autistic, and so we have this and. There's, there's all types of different versions of love, relationships, belonging. We can love an event. We can love. I have great love for Taylor Swift and her music, and so that is a form of love. We have our own self-love that is. If you were talking about ableism, and I think that that's a really important concept when you think about love and the ability to show up for oneself. If the world is telling you you're lesser than, or that you're broken in some ways, or that if you just changed these parts and did it a little less autistically, we'd welcome you a little bit more. It is really hard to have a firm self-love. And so this aspect of kind of dismantling ableism through experiences where autistic people get to be autistic, and I don't say that lightly, where autistic traits are welcomed, autistic traits are expected, autistic traits are going to be the norm in this event. And one of the things that I've done within this event is, over this year, I've done a lot of thinking in terms of, you were talking about considering our ableist aspects of ourselves, right? Yeah. And we all have them. We all consistently have to contend with our internalized ableism and work towards making those adjustments. And one of the things that I was considering is, what autistic traits do I see and not see in myself? And one of them was robust passions, where I was like, I want to be out loud with my love for Taylor Swift, where autistic people oftentimes, we call it quote unquote special interest if we're in the medical model, but they will have a robust passion and they'll show up for that passion and they'll cultivate it in their lives and they'll talk about it and, perhaps info dump on it. And I was like, I'm going to learn that trait. I'm going to own that trait and I'm going to see it inside myself and experience that joy. So that's even another message related to, accepting, not accepting autistic traits, but making sure that autistic traits are considered as part of the deep human experience that we're all, wanting to create in our lives.
Well, I'm dying to know. So you listen to our definitions about ableism and our talk about it. I'm dying to know from you, like, what did you think, and how do you express this, and how is this being expressed through the events?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that when we're thinking about ableism, I mean, if I love for Taylor Swift to be at my event, that would be a dream of 2025. But if I had another dream, a real dream for 2025, it would be that ableism is a word that all of us know. Similar to the way that we know racism. Maybe we can't write an Oxford definition or we can't, scribe 3 sentences on it, but we really, really do know the word. Mm-hmm. And most of us, and I imagine that many of your viewers, are in a position where they are aware of racism in daily life. And they want to contend with that. They don't want to be a racist, right? Most of us, I would assume. I'm going to make that big jump. And that's the same thing with ableism, is that this word is sometimes outside of people's knowledge, even within our community, right? Like, this isn't a word that it's well known. And I love it to be the word of 2025 is ableism. And how do we contend with that? And really, it's about examining our own thought processes, our belief systems, our life stories, like you were sharing earlier. And then how do we act upon the world? How do we understand if I have this limiting belief about somebody that is different than me in any way? How do I act upon the world? And is that a way that is infringing on the rights of other people or making their experience harder? And if that is the way, can we adjust that? And so the first thing we need to do when we're thinking about ableism is to kind of consider, what are our own limiting beliefs? Where do they come from? How do they show up in our everyday lives? And I think that most often ableism is unintentional. And even within our, a lot of us in helping professionals in the medical model, the educational model, and community spaces. And like you said, it's lovely when somebody can point out something where there's a growth moment for you. Yeah. And oftentimes when those experiences happens, we can become kind of defensive. And I've taken that defensiveness or even that experience of to mean lean into it, experience what that is, and consider where that might be coming from. And then from there, we can consider, how do we become better people with what we think and believe now? How do we continue to extend that to have thoughts that don't infringe on the rights of other people and actions that don't infringe on the rights of other people, whether they're unintentionally infringing or not? We do really need to be considerate that it's in all of us. And I liked, I think that your conversation about the word disabled, I can see where you're coming from. I really feel like I want that to be a neutral word, right? Like, disabled is a neutral word. It should be a neutral experience. It shouldn't be to be non-disabled is superior, to be non-autistic is superior to being autistic, or and I think that ability to see disability as neutral, as human, helps us consider when we find parts of ourselves that are not feeling neutral, about it. And when I say neutral, it doesn't mean that, oh, we do nothing about it. In fact, it means that we can then think about it as, oh, we're not pitying somebody for this. We're not excluding somebody. We're not seeing it as a disadvantage, so that we can then create spaces and systems that allow this neutrality to exist. And right now, the systems, I think that so often, unfortunately, a lot of our medical and educational systems kind of perpetuate ableism.
Yeah. It's a lot to think. I'll work on being more neutral with the term, but for very specific reasons, it's harder for me. And I find that's true for so many people with so many different words. I think when we started the show 14 years ago, we were using one set of language, and then we heard from people and they said, that doesn't apply to us and we don't like that. And that offends me when you use that term. And we were like, oh, maybe we should use this set of terms. And then other people said, but no, I don't like that. And what we discovered is it's so individual. And that honestly, why don't we celebrate that? Does it make it uncomfortable and difficult sometimes? Yes, because sometimes if I don't know the words that somebody uses, I will use a word and they'll go, hey, that's not the word I use. And I have to say, my apologies. What words would you like to use? I try to remember beforehand to say, please identify yourself with the words that you would like, and we will use those words for the show. I don't always remember to do that. Because,
I feel, like I've had a lot of goes at this too, right? We have learned new words. We've discarded certain words. Words come into favor, and I think that flexibility of word use for the service of somebody's identity is really important. So if somebody is sharing that they'd like a specific word to be used, be anti-ableist and go ahead and use that word, even if it's not the word that you had thought was the most reasonable word to have or to say at the time. And words change, right?
Yes.
I think about the words in reference to people that are not autistic, and I have chosen for myself and to kind of categorize people that are not autistic as being non-autistic, rather than neurotypical was the word for a bit of time, and that started to grind on me and bother me, because I was just like, I get what it's saying and meaning, I do, and I get that the intention wasn't to have a hierarchy, that one was better than the other, but it to me inferred that. And so I've just really chosen to for myself say non-autistic as a descriptor when talking in these spaces, and that fits for me. I'm not autistic. I won't be autistic, and I don't believe that everybody is a little autistic. I think that autistic traits are are human traits. So there's variability in human traits everywhere. But yeah, I think that words are important, language is important, and how we adjust when something is somebody brings something to us is also one of the most important things. So when we're thinking about how do we become anti-ableist, how do we lessen our ableist parts, it is about saying, I might not know right now, but I certainly can respond when I do know.
And while I'm figuring it out, I care. I think that's the other part of it, right? That I think when we get
I mean, you hear people using the R word still, and I'm just like, and people will say, and I'll be like, yo, like, no way. Like, and they'll be educated moms my age, and they'll be like, oh, come on, we just we said it in the 90s, we said it in the 80s, and I'm like, leave it there. You're intelligent enough to not choose that word. And so I do feel like another part of it is to be brave enough to make sure change is occurring. So some of us can be braver at different times and louder in our words and language and take bigger risks. But in the event that you feel like you can take the risk, helping somebody see that what they're saying or doing is a form of ableism is, I think, very, very important. And you don't have to do it as, like very unkind. You can just put it into somebody's space, like bring it to their attention.
Yeah.
And hopefully that those little shifts, maybe it doesn't shift in the moment. Maybe people have to go reflect, outside of that interaction. But I think that is just one of the ways that we can really change. Like people ask me all the time, well, what can I do? Like I don't own an organization, or I'm not a professional, or I don't have a bunch of letters behind my name. And it's really about doing it in everyday interactions. And if we know the word, and we can use the word ableism, and we can also bring into the awareness, other people's awareness, these experiences, we are creating change for maybe people that don't feel like it's safe enough to have their voice or share where the discrimination is happening. Because at the end of the day, ableism is discrimination.
Yeah. Yes. And I appreciate that you said you think that most of it is, that a lot of times it's unintentional, but I think that sometimes that's just as dangerous, if not more, because then it's so easy to say, well, that's somebody else doing it, and point the finger instead of, looking and going, hey, where am I on this? I do want to say, go ahead.
I think that part of, but I didn't mean it in that way. That can actually ... and I can hear it from your position. Like when we're in a position where we say, but I didn't mean it that way. Right. And that really could be a very real state. Like, oh my gosh, I really didn't mean it that way. We do as individuals have to take it further and say, and I can hear it in that way now.
Yeah. And
I'm open to the possibility, or not that like like it's not splitting the difference, or like, we could agree to disagree. It's when we understand something new about ourselves that we can then integrate it immediately with what's being shared. And that part is, because if you didn't really intend for something to be harmful or hurtful, and you find out it is, then repair it. Exactly. And you repair it in that moment, and then in future moments.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you brought up the R word, I have a dear, close friend who used that word on a regular basis. And every time I would clench but I felt, I think for a lot of years, I felt like, oh, I don't want to say something because I don't want to hurt her feelings. I don't want to push away the friendship. I guess I was afraid of what her response would be. And then finally, it was like 2 years ago, excuse me, that's how recent it was, that I said, you know what? I love you so much, but can I tell you there's something that you're saying that every time you say it, I have a physical reaction. Excuse me. And she said, my goodness, what? Oh, I'm so sorry. I have a tickle in my throat now. But we had a real heart to heart. And she said, I had no idea. And I said, well, and I want you to consider, I might not be the only person feeling that way. And she stopped. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm going to let you talk.
Absolutely.
And it was powerful. And we are better friends for it. And she said, I really appreciate that you told me. Because
well, and I think that is something, comfort and discomfort. But sometimes we choose immediate comfort, like the idea of like, well, she is a nice person. I know her heart. I can see her heart, and like it's and so we choose the immediate comfort rather than the discomfort of bringing something to somebody's attention. And what you discovered is that discomfort that you experienced when you just shared and ended up revealing actually a much better version of the relationship, because you were actually experiencing discomfort inside, and then you brought the discomfort outside, and you said, can you hold my discomfort? And she did.
Yeah.
And then the relationship proceeds. In the event that she didn't, right? Like, yeah. Then we have a decision point of, my discomfort wasn't held. My discomfort wasn't considered. So now what does this mean about our relationships or our interactions? And so I do think that, so often we can take ourselves out of a place of comfort and into momentary discomfort. And that is for the purpose of the greater good. And the greater good doesn't even mean in the large future of all of her interactions. It was actually the greater good of your guys' friendship and relationship. And, so, but I also know that, like when I think about ableism and autistic human rights, so for so long, it has been on the backs of autistic people and their families alone. It's like, it's your battle over here,
Yeah.
And that just can't be the thing. It just can't. It has to be something that every one of us is at the forefront of our lives, so that we're all considering how do we decrease discrimination for autistic people and their families. And it can't just be something that autistic people have to do alone.
Amen to that. It is a difficult time right now. There are a lot of things that are changing, and I've seen a lot of people say, I got to remove myself from social media because it seems like I just know even in mine, the other days, I hadn't seen this kind of comment in 20 years, but I saw somebody who was like,
it was over, right?
What's that?
I thought some of this was over, right? You and I have done this version of Cure Culture before. We have, and it creates so much anguish and anxiety. Like it's so sad, and I understand that escape from news for certain people that it's so heavy. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No. But it's funny because somebody had said it's like when you peel back the linoleum that was kind of cracked and wasn't perfect, but you were working on it. And you peel back the linoleum and you see that there's mold and crap and bugs underneath, and we've kind of pulled back some linoleum, I guess, and see that there's much more work to be done.
I mean, I'm hoping we pull back that linoleum and we hit hardwood floors. Gorgeous, beautiful.
Let's get down to
restore. But yeah, we're contending. This is a very difficult moment. I think that even 6 months ago, I wouldn't have been able to predicted how relevant this conversation about ableism would be, because people are hating out loud again.
Yeah.
And that is something that then we have to love out loud even louder, and we have to be clearer with each other that within this space, being autistic isn't something that you need to change or cure, or and that doesn't certainly mean, or that certainly continues to mean that absolutely personalized services and treatment and care and access to any workspace, educational space, that all still needs to be considered. But it is a harder moment in people's lives, and I feel like there's some, right when you started talking about it, I was like, this is a very tender space for those that are doing this for the first time.
Yes.
And those that are doing it for a second time.
Yeah.
Or more.
I can remember when my son was starting school, and I was in some sort of a group on Facebook where they were talking about special education things, and there was just a person who wrote in and said, I don't understand why I have to pay my tax dollars for these kids to be able to go to school. And I remember crying about it as a parent and thinking, God, there are some people out there who are that cold-hearted that want to go back to the 1970s. And I saw a comment very similar to that the other day. I'm through it myself, through the education process as a parent. But it's funny, my husband and I talk about this all the time. That doesn't mean you stop caring about it. Right? And I guess I comfort myself, Jenny, with the fact that, whether they're looking for it or not, this is going to touch everybody's life at some point, if it's not already and they don't know it. And that perhaps, I don't know, I think when you're there and experiencing it, if you weren't listening before, I think it forces you to.
Absolutely. And so when we feel like we can be loud and that it's safe enough to be loud and safe enough to be bold, and I'm saying safe enough because certainly if somebody is feeling unsafe to kind of call out discriminatory systems and comments, anything, then I don't want, I don't want to say that that's the only way through, is to contend with, whatever the ableist experience is happening. But I do think that right now it calls for any of us and all of us that feel like they have a voice to be a voice, and to be able to say, my tax dollars do get to go to, any and all students to have access to public education, and individualized public education, and personalized medicine, and so when we're feeling, we should. And I think that it allows for those that are feeling like they can't, or that they're very scared as to where we're going in this next year or so, to know that there are people that are actively walking alongside them, and that are demanding that human rights are afforded to everybody, not just the non-autistic or non-disabled people.
Absolutely. And in fact, part of this Eras tour, you are welcoming and helping people to come to this with the express purpose of being allies. Is that correct? Absolutely.
Yes. I always, there are people that are coming to this event that have emailed and said, I just really love, I love Taylor Swift. Can I go? And I'm like, absolutely. Yes. And, part of this is that we can all ally to and create autistic joy and belonging within this event and others. And so, we're not exclusively autistic at this event. There are allies as well, and it should be a really, really wonderful and magical experience. I think so often when we, Alex and I have created a number of events together, and so sometimes when we're dreaming again, or we're creating again, we talk about what we didn't achieve, or what was kind of a miss, or something that was not accessible, and then we repair it, or we think of something that we just saw and we say, how do we do this better and different and more interesting, or how do we talk about this in a way that is more inviting and more inclusive to autistic people? So hopefully we'll have another round of learning and do it again in some other format. But this particular event, I think, will be a really safe and comforting and comfortable event, while also being very, joyful and high energy, and hopefully people make some great connections for the day.
I love it. Okay, we're almost out of time. We really are out of time, but we have to tell people how they can find more information. Do you have room for more people to register?
We are going to shut off the registration after 15 more people.
Okay. So you guys, there's 15 spots. So if you want to go, you got to jump on this. So www.loveandautism.com. And then you can see where the Love and Eras tour is, and click on that to register. Is there? It is free. It's free, no cost. Okay.
Yeah.
So people need to do that right away. 15 spots, you guys. So who are going to be the lucky 15? I think we have a picture of you and Alex. I don't know if Chris has that accessible. I love Alex. I just feel like Alex is a family member, and I owe him a phone call. There he is.
We met at a Love and Autism event and just developed a great friendship, and and that's my daughter and I at an Eras Tour event. But yeah, it's really fun to create events and do it better than our last event, and continuously say, where else can we find joy? Where else can we create connection? And then just do it. And it's going to be a great time.
Jenny, you're doing an amazing job.
You don't even have to love Taylor Swift. You'll walk away loving Taylor Swift.
There you go. You're doing an amazing job, and I just so appreciate. When is it? We didn't talk about when. When is it?
March 2nd. So Sunday.
2nd. Okay,
yeah.
This Sunday. Oh my gosh. Okay, So if you want to go, you got to get that all going. And where is it happening?
It's at the Thursday Club, which is in Point Loma, San Diego. And it is one of the most spectacular venue spaces that I've done before or ever. And I also think this is a beautiful meta message that autistic people deserve beautiful spaces too.
Yeah.
And so often when we are like raising money for autistic people, that's when you see the beauty. And I'm like, no, for the autistic people with let's do this and let's create this beautiful atmosphere. And so it's going to be a gorgeous event.
Amen to that. Well, we hope you have a great event. We're so thrilled that you took the time to be with us. Please, you guys, if there's only 15 seats left. If you want to go, you got to go now. loveandautism.com. Thank you for being with us, Jenny.
Oh, you're welcome. This was lovely.
Well, we so appreciate you. Thank you, and have a wonderful weekend and have a wonderful event.
Thank you so much.
All right.
We'll talk soon.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right. We're really out of time, you guys, but I just want to really quickly say that in the next couple of days, we'll be posting about it. We're going to go live with our auction. We're having like a garage sale, but it's an auction. I'm just looking around because we have so many things out in the studio that we're taking pictures of and cataloging it for the auction. I hope it'll go live tomorrow or Friday at the latest. You guys can bid on things. You do have to be in Los Angeles on March 8th to pick them up. I think that's the date that it's a pickup. We'll check that. But I hope that you'll check that out. We're back next Monday, and we're really gearing up. I know it's just going to be March, but we're really massively gearing up for April. We have some amazing things going on in April. We'll have the full schedule for the full month out to you in a couple of weeks, but you guys, buckle up. There's some big stuff that we're going to be talking about that I think that you guys will really appreciate. Lots and lots of stuff happening throughout March as we gear up towards that. We are moving at some point in April, which makes it really difficult, but we are pre-taping things, which is why I can tell you it's amazeballs. So keep an eye on that, and we will be back next week. We've got Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and we do have Dr. Doreen, I am told, next week. So make sure that you tune in for that. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.